Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Taringa weekly live broadcast. Welcome. I'm so glad you could join us today. So, every week we're talking about a different subject. We're changing it up a little bit, trying to cover some new and different things since there are new and different things affecting us during the quarantine. And so I thought this might be a good time for us to talk about just that. So I'm Dana Stengel, and this is Taringa Ranch. And today, you can't really tell because I'll show you. I'm wearing my super cool P22 t-shirt. I got it at the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area before all of this. So I have urban wildlife on my brain today. And I hope you do too. And I hope that this could be sort of a conversation where if you have questions or comments, you will put them in the chat so that we can address them. So, let's talk about some stuff. I wanted to have more time before I got online today to read through a lot of this stuff before I presented it, but I got a flat tire today going to the store, so that took way more time than I expected. That was crazy, but that is another story for another day. So there are some articles going around online. This is one. This one was published pretty recently in the LA Times on April 21st by Louis Sahagan, and he was able to interview Jerry Hans from the Friends of Griffith Park, and this is a photo from the trail cam there. Unfortunately, when I printed out a lot of these articles, for some reason, the pictures did not print. But, and so the question, I think, is there's all kinds of stories, right? There's stories about dolphins in the canals, and there's stories about deer, and there's stories about coyotes, and there's stories about all kinds of different things. I just read one this morning about, I think bison were on Catalina Island, down by the water, like hanging out by the shoreline, which is something I guess they're not usually seen doing. I bet it's really interesting to see how all this is affecting an island, like Catalina Island, right? I hadn't even thought of that. But here in the city, I get calls a lot about wildlife, and, and it's pretty consistent. And I would say that during this quarantine period, I have not gotten more calls about wildlife. So that's my personal experience. And the kinds of wildlife that I get experience with are sort of the things that people are seeing. Like, is there a coyote on the roof? I saw a coyote on the roof today. I don't usually see a coyote on the roof. The reality is, just because you don't usually see it, it's probably because you're at work. There could be a coyote on the roof at any given point in time. And in fact, when I give my presentations, that's one of the more surprising facts that I share with people is coyotes, actually, in particular, are really successful in the urban environment, living right along where people are living, and not necessarily on a nocturnal schedule. So my personal opinion on these stories is that it takes a long time for wildlife to change their habits, and they have to have a reason to do that. And it also takes a long time for animals to go through gestation periods, right? Like, for there to be 4 times as many bears in a certain park, for example, there would have to be a certain number of days of gestation, and seasons, right? Because animals are also seasonal in their gestation. Did their season happen yet? Did anything, and a lot of animals are having their season right now. Is there anything that's happening to them in the wild now that's going to affect that season? I don't know. As someone who looks at science, I tend to think that sometimes these things are made to be a little bit sensationalistic. I think there isn't actually more wildlife. I just think that we've slowed down enough to see it, to hear it, to feel its presence. That's what I think happened. And while I think that it is totally possible that certain animals are veering into territories that they aren't usually in, I think that in general, these animals have habits that they've had right alongside human beings this whole time. And there isn't enough change in the way humans are living their lives for these animals to change their habits as well. That might sound crazy. And I know it's not sensationalistic and fun. It's certainly not as much fun as coyotes, falcons, deer, and other wildlife are reclaiming LA territory as humans stay home. Like, that's way more fun. But I could tell you that this deer is probably in Griffith Park all the time. Right. So coyotes, though, like if I could think of any animal that would be likely, who's the most likely to change his pattern based on an opportunity, right? Coyote, 100%. Is something like a bear or a mountain lion really going to change his activity? I wish that there was a light enough flow of traffic on the freeways that the mountain lions could cross for a few minutes. I do wish that. Do I think that's a possibility personally? I do not. Is there enough science on this quarantine and how it's affected wildlife yet? There is not. So people are definitely speculating. And what I find really beautiful, like really, really beautiful, is that people are seeing this wildlife that has been there the whole time for generations, right? I think it's amazing. I think it's wonderful. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for people to reconnect, even just with what is right in their little front yard or their little backyard. Just yesterday, I was out there just taking a minute, just sitting quietly in one spot next to a bush. And I just sat there. It was shady. All of a sudden, I looked down, and there was a slug in my yard. I have not seen a slug in my yard in at least 15 years. A slug. And I was really, I know people don't like slugs in their yard. I love slugs. I thought it was super cool. I'm very excited about it. But I wouldn't have known that slug was there if I hadn't actually taken 10 minutes to sit down outside. And that's something I don't usually have time to do in my own yard at home during the day on a weekday, right? So anyway, some of the articles that I came across that I thought I would share that were interesting, right? We've got this one from the LA Times, so there's that. And what I like about the one from the other ones that I have are from different places. They're not all California, and the ones that are California are further north. The LA Times one I like because the interviewer was able to talk to a variety of different people about their experiences with LA wildlife. And so the first person was Jerry Hans, the president of the nonprofit Friends of Griffith Park. And, he was talking about woodpeckers and migrating birds, which migrating birds, that's so cool. But they're going to be migrating through every year, I'm pretty sure. And of course, P22, right? P22 is in Griffith Park, whether there's a quarantine or not. And I can tell you, when it was not the quarantine, I was actually able to see a video where there was a runner running by one direction, and then just a few minutes later, P22 go in the other direction, crisscrossing on the same trail in the middle of the day, right? So not that I don't think P22 is up very often during the day, but this time he was. Who else? There was somebody else they mentioned in this article. Oh, Seth Riley. Seth Riley, one of our favorite local wildlife. He's a wildlife ecologist and branch chief for the National Park Service's National Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. He says there's no evidence that the animals that we're tracking are crossing freeways anymore in the last couple of weeks. But that's not too surprising. It's a very short time frame, right? So again, like for us, it feels like a really long time frame when we can't go out and do the things we want to do. But for wildlife, they don't feel these changes the way we do. In smaller amounts, I think they do, for sure. Okay, what else? Who else? And they were quoting somebody else in here. Similarly, research scientist Yam Quinn, who serves as Human Wildlife Interactions Advisor for the UC Cooperative Extension, said none of the 5 collared coyotes she is studying in the cities of Hacienda Heights, Roland Heights, Laverne, and Chino Hills have changed their behavior yet. So there's that. And then, yeah, so that's the story. Does anybody, while you're here, like, pipe in? Who's here? And did you have a question or a thought, or have you seen anything crazy or interesting that you would like to share with us that we can talk about? Because like I said, personally, I haven't seen much either. But there was one resource I want to share with you before you go. And that is this study. The Urban Coyote Research Study is amazing. This is the study that's going on right now in Cook County, where coyotes are living among the high rises in Chicago. And they're very successful. And they're called the ghost dog for a reason. They're blending in just like they are here. But if you're paying attention, or if you know where they are, you can find them sometimes. So anyway, check this out. This is a great resource. It's got some great videos on there of the biologists studying the coyotes. And please take pictures of what you see, because what an amazing opportunity, right? And if you can share them on the Churanga Ranch Facebook page, we would certainly love that. And thank you for taking a few minutes today to talk with us and hang out with us. And we will be on again next Thursday. Next Thursday, we're going to talk specifically about rattlesnakes, as it is getting to be warmer and people are getting out hiking more and more. We're going to talk about hiking safely in rattlesnake territory and what to do when you've got rattlesnakes in the backyard. So that's going to be super fun. That's next Thursday at 3 o'clock here. Subscribe, then you'll get the message, right? And we go live Tuesdays at 3 o'clock also with a kids program. And next Tuesday, our kids program also has to do with rattlesnakes. So next week is just rattlesnake week all around for Churanga. And we will see you then. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.